Where did I go, Cotton Eye Joe? I figured you'd be used to it by now. First there was the SPL, then Cthulhu come out. Now that's what I've been doing. He's big, he's chunky, let's go. Auto attacks first. The chain 1-1-1. Traditional, classic, nothing special. That's where you're wrong, because the second and third swings are actually longer. The first swing is 16 units, then the next two are 20 units of what? Inches, centimeters, meters, what? Units. They're units of units. I have no idea what Smite bases their units of measurement on. Just know, first swing is 16 of them, 20 for the next one, and 20 after. And that third hit can hit multiple targets. Keep that in mind as you are approaching the wave. Sometimes it is good to get those two wind-up hits in, and then as soon as you approach the wave, boom, you hit with that third shot, that AoE. The passive Cthulhu drives you insane. Who would have guessed? That third swing, the AoE, it applies Torment. His abilities also can apply Torment. The smoke you see coming out of Odin's pants is not my burning affection for him, it's the Torment. You can't visually tell how many stacks of Torment you have on somebody. You can kind of tell by sound cues because the whispering gets a little more aggressive the further along you are. But that fourth stack of Torment on the same god, you see these red things hovering around, you hear some whispering and a ding, popcorn's done. The enemy god is now insane, and you gain 25 magical power for every insane god standing near you. Jeepers creepers, that's what these peepers are here for, 5 of them. They're only open if you're in range and they're insane. Insanity lasts 20 seconds, or until you consume it. And you have to stack Torment on somebody fast because Torment only lasts for 5 seconds. The one is a big cone that does damage. Enemies that you hit are marked with this little swirly thing. Those enemies now temporarily have reduced attack speed and damage mitigations applied against them. It says enemies, so that is minions, that is buff camps, that is gods. And I think it's bugged right now because the attack speed slow is applied to minions and buff camps, but not the damage mitigations. As you can see, they definitely have the effect on them. They definitely have slower attack speed, but the damage numbers are staying the same. Thought I did something wrong, so I brought in Osiris. He also has damage mitigations, and they changed for him. This ability also applies Torment, 2 if they're facing you when you hit them, 1 if they're facing away. Or if they're already insane and you hit them with this. The enemy god gets feared, and you consume the insanity, which increases permanently your damage mitigation that you have during the 1 and the ultimate. That's what this little bar is here that says 20% on it. You can get that from a 20 to all the way 30%. Sounds pretty good. We'll talk about it. 2 has 2 parts to it. First, you get this massive circle that's a 10% slow, and it grows the longer the ability goes. Part 2, a little cosmic doo-doo comes out. If you are in the circle when this part comes out, you take damage and you are slowed some more. It also applies a stack of Torment. Part 3, a little more space caca comes out. Enemies in the circle for this phase are hit with a root and damage. Phase 3 also applies a little Torment. You may have noticed this ability is massive. It's not that hard to miss, but it is easy to dodge. Regardless of missing or dodging, that's a spot that's getting completely denied. Nobody wants to stand in that. And really, the skill that's going to separate Cthulhu players for the 2 is going to be canceling it. Canceling it puts it on cooldown faster. If you missed, if it's somewhere you didn't want it, cancel it. If they got hit by the second part but avoided the 3, cancel it as soon as you saw they were leaving. A lot of players have this weird habit of just staring down abilities that they should have canceled. And the biggest trick I have for you for the 2 is get the timings down for the plot. Because after Cthulhu is done channeling, he does this little fist pump thing. He can't auto attack, he can't use abilities, he can't use relics until that fist pump goes through. So if you time it and cancel it right before that second plop, the third phase will still go through. It goes on cooldown a lot sooner and you can take action sooner. Be wary because this ability is interruptible at every stage. Don't bother standing around, don't bother looking, you're not going to change where it is that it's landing. So as soon as you place it, get moving. If you're using it defensively, you're wondering if it hit, check your peripherals, the numbers will appear on the side. The 3 is a dash. Anything hit by Cthulhu is stunned and pushed back. He also fires these projectiles that do damage. If you hit something with Cthulhu, that is a stack of Torment. If you hit something with the projectile, that's another stack of Torment. So what you want to do is angle it slightly so you knock them into the projectile. You're also knock-up immune, but it doesn't mention it. You can cancel the dash early, the projectiles will still follow through. Problem with this ability is it is slow. You can get interrupted by almost everything. Talk about that later because now the ultimate, it is massive and annoying. First, when you go into the ultimate, the people around you are damaged, but it doesn't mean they can't be loved. Your health is increased by 30%. Enemies within the dark shadow are afflicted by Torment, and it stacks faster if they're facing you. And every effect from the 1 is now applied. The damage mitigations, the reduced attack speed. You are crowd control immune in this, and you also gain 3 more abilities. And you kind of have to go into jungle practice and ult over and over again so you can see the abilities. You can be blocked by people or objects. The first new ability ability is the Backscratcher, the swipe left on Tinder. He fires 3 projectiles. Yes, they do go through walls. It does not proc items, it reduces protections, it costs no mana. The new 2 is a big AoE that does damage and has a knock-up effect. The new 3 is also a massive area of effect. It does damage to all enemies, more damage if they're closer. Allies are given health, movement, speed, and power. It also costs a bit of your life to use. If you are below 20% health, it won't cost you life, but the effects will be halved. That's the kit. Now let's talk about it with all the context. It's very simple, but very effective. There are some characters that are simple, but not very effective. Other characters are very effective, but not simple. And I personally believe he has the best ratio of skill needed to what he does for you. And because of how effective he is, it dumbs down his own kit. Like the passive, a noob player will have 20% damage mitigations compared to a quote-unquote master who will get 30% because they built up the passive. Remember, to build up this passive, you have to torment somebody 4 times, and then while they're insane, you eat it with the 1. Do you have any idea how cumbersome that is? You can hit them twice with the 2 and then dash in and then use your 1. And that's the most effective combo. All for 0.5% damage mitigations. The difference between 20 and 30 isn't even that high. I'm not trying to compare the gods directly, I'm just trying to show the amount of work put in here. A notable skill gap for Osiris players is the passive management. If you're not good, it's because you can't manage that passive. Cthulhu, even if you don't eat any insanity whatsoever, you still get more damage mitigations than Osiris. You can ult. This also causes torment and then insanity, and then you come out of the ultimate and you use your 1. If you are ulting and people are not dying or completely dispersing from you to the point where you can consume the insanity after your entire ult has gone by, you're a bad Cthulhu. So what is the playstyle? It kind of writes itself. He's an ADC. No, not at all. I've tried that. As fun as it was, he's not an ADC. Jungle, not really. He doesn't have the mobility. He doesn't have the clear. Your main kit is interruptible. You will get out-pressured and bullied. Solo lane. Early, he's got a rough time. Depending on the matchup, he can get out-pressured a little bit. But if you're not shut out by late game, you pretty much win the game. Support depends on what you want. He doesn't have that much peel. He doesn't have that much utility. I would say of Guardian supports, he loses all those matchups. At all stages of the game, he is the worst Guardian support in this game. Can put him in the duo lane, but you have to understand what he's doing there. During the playoffs, PBM was playing Kazembo. Plays him like a bully. He was fighting the mages, he was fighting the ADCs. It's essentially another solo laner, but in the duo lane. Get this through your head. If I'm playing Cthulhu support, I'm not there to protect you. I'm there to kill their backline. And funny enough, he can be played in the mid lane. Last year, we saw Zeros play Yorm in the mid lane. He was a tanky worm with a lot of diving potential. Oh, you don't do as much damage as a normal mid laner. No, you don't, but the whole point is to kill theirs, and then theirs is doing less damage because they're dead. He's gonna get out-cleared and out-pressured until you get a few points into the 2. And after that, it is smooth sailing. Leveling, first ability that you're gonna get, depends on the situation. The 1, the 2, the 3. The 1 has the shortest cooldown, so it's good for constant fighting. The 2 is good if you want to keep people away from you or cover more ground. If you feel like you're gonna get out pressured, might as well concede the pressure and use the 2 at range. Does pretty good damage, and if someone tries to invade you, you can just chuck it over the wall and try to out-secure them. You can start the 3 if you like, does the most damage outright. If you didn't start with your 3 at level 1, level 2, you might as well. If you did start with the 3, choose whether you want the 1 or the 2. Level 3, get the one that's left, and level 4 is when you now decide what you're gonna max out first. Personally, I believe in maxing the 2. The benefits of leveling the 2 as opposed to the others is you can actually lower the cooldown by leveling it, and it is by far the safest move in his kit. The 1 means you gotta be kinda close, the 3 also means you gotta be kinda close, and then your escape is down if you used it. I was going against somebody who was using the 3 a lot, and he was out pressuring me, but every time he used it, he got ganked. Sure, you can ult, but you're kinda playing wrong if you don't get something out of your ultimate. Try to not get into the habit of using ultimates as safety nets. It's like Hunbats. If you jump on him, he'll ult and now he's gone. But now the enemy is in no threat because Hunbats doesn't have his ult anymore. Just because you survived does not mean that it wasn't wasted. After the 2, I max the 1, then I max the 3, getting the ult whenever I can. Now the build is pretty standard. Bit of the traditional Guardian solo laner build. And if you don't play Conquest, this is the Guardian dive build. It's the same build. Kabrakan, Yorm, Sobek, they've all used it. The Blessing, Warriors for solo, Guardians for support, and you can go Warriors or Mages for mid. Boots, depends on what you want. You can go Power Boots if you care about the lifesteal. Guardians have Guardian scaling, meaning that the power is almost irrelevant. Power Boots if you want the lifesteal, not because you want the power. Cooldown Boots because you want the cooldown. Cooldown is very good on Cthulhu. You want that ult up as often as possible, and the abilities in his ultimate also get reduced cooldown. Speedy Boots boots if you want to move around more or if you need that mana sustain, but you honestly don't really need them. Aside from the start, he's pretty good with mana, and the rest of the build's gonna have mana in it. I like the tank boots. It's rare that you're gonna come across a composition that doesn't proc it all the way, and it fits better in with the planning of the build. We will talk the tank build first, so this is the solo laners and the supports. Breastplate of Valor, good stuff for your mana, for your protections, and 20% cooldown reductions. Genji's bit of health, good bit of protections there. More for your mana, 10% cooldown reductions, and the flat cooldown reduction. If the enemy team is a little on the tanky side, Void Stone instead. We've got physical protections, we've got magical protections, we need health. It's a great item, especially when you're standing around in the late game. 6% of someone's maximum health stolen, that's on par with some Soul Reaver hits. And if it's a slow poke fight, you can get this stacked on somebody 3 times. They can temporarily have lost 18% of their maximum health, and you gain that 18%. And who is always in the front line, easiest to poke? That's right, the tanks. And now a Spear of Desolation. It has power, okay, Guardian scaling, remember that. It has some flat penetration, very good against squishies. Some cooldown should be at 40% with the breastplate and the Genjis and this. But with the Genji passive and the Deso passive, you are now shooting over the 40% cap. Last item, you can go any kind of utility, really. Why not a Stone of Binding at the start of the build? You can if you want to. I've seen some solo laners do it. I'm just not a fan of stalling out the build so long. Why not a Gem of ISO? ISO is more so a utility item. It's about keeping people locked down, controlling where they are, whereas I just want them dead outright. This is not the end-all be-all build, it's more of a template. Keep in mind to be flexible, it's a good starter build. The mid lane and the non-conquest build is the exact same items except you build Desolation third. And the playstyle is very straightforward. Get to your late game. Play to the strengths and weaknesses of your build. At the start, don't fight too much, focus on clearing, focus on farming. Once you get physical protections, you can show your face a bit more to the physicals. Once the magic is online, show your face to both. You've got the ethereal, you can sort of lead now. And as it goes on, the whole point of you is to stay alive, don't take damage for your team, poke at the hunter and the mage, and then ult the squishies. That's why it doesn't matter what your relics are unless one of them is thorns. Team compositions around Cthulhu, very simple. Your ADC and the mage, somebody who is very good at staying alive. If Cthulhu wants the squishy dead, they're gonna be dead. The only thing the enemy team can do is retaliate by taking one of yours. Therefore, a safe ADC, a safe mage, or ones that can dive with you. We're talking Ram, Chernobog, Nuwa, Hera, ooh, big boys. Your jungler or assassin, somebody who's dive-oriented. And then Nike, Amaterasu, dive-oriented. It doesn't matter if Scylla does more damage than Cthulhu, or Agni does more damage than Cthulhu, but Cthulhu kills them, now they do no damage at all. I think he's a little overtuned right now, I'm not sure what's gonna happen with him. If he's brought down to be in line with other supports, he's gonna be completely useless if the kit's not addressed. And really, if his whole identity is the ultimate, I'm not sure what you do. He is the best diver that has ever existed in this game. Even if he is brought down to Nike and Amaterasu levels, he's still gonna be insane. But mid-season changes are coming up, so who knows what could happen. Now get out there and become the god you were meant to be.